All right. All right. All right. Hey, everybody. I hope you're online. I'm now at my office. Hey, everybody. I hope you're online. I'm now at my office. Hey, everybody. I hope you're online. I'm now at my office. I'm now at my office. Okay. Hindi lang maganda ang lighting, ha? Nakalimutan kong magdala ng lamps. But anyway, pwede na rin. Hey, we have to check your attendance. So, punta lahat kayo. Alright, punta kayo sa punta lahat kayo sa Google Classroom natin. Alright. Meron tayong attendance check. This is it. Okay. Now, let me see. Stream natin to. Okay. Everyone, take a look. Lectures posted as new material. Attendance form. Click nyo yan. And dyan yung ating Google form for attendance. Okay. Attendance. Okay. Okay. Okay, I am Associate Professor Jerico de Villa. I'm from the Philosophy Department. This is my photograph as of last semester. Yan ako. Now, ito ngayon ang itsura ko. Alright. Ito ang itsura ko last sem. Ito naman ang itsura ko ngayon. Alright. Our broadcast will always be available for review. They will be posted live and then later they will be posted on YouTube, available for everybody to see. The lectures are labeled public lectures because some of my students who have been around with me during my classes last semester are also going to participate. We are giving them the opportunity to participate because we have not been able to finish all our lectures last semester, and some of them, not all of them, some of them still want to continue our discussions. Siguro nagustuhan yung ating lecture, so okay lang. Sige, go lang sila. Okay, so ulitin natin. I'm Associate Professor Jerico de Villa. I am an Associate Professor teaching philosophy of science, logic, among other things. Now, let me call your attention to our course objective. All right. What's the title of the class? It's Philosophical Analysis. There you go. Now, what's the course description? For my purposes, this is our course description. This is a course on philosophical analysis dealing with the nature and limits of reasoning. Later, I'm going to ask you, how many of you have taken up some course on the nature and limits of reasoning in high school or in senior high? Right? Tanong, yan bang nature and limits of reasoning pinag-aralan yung mabuti nung high school, nung senior high? Yan ang ating tanong. Alright. Now, ano ang ating course objective? At the end of the semester, the student should have enough understanding of the nature and limits of reasoning as to be able to cite examples of philosophical analysis in the areas of philosophy of science, logic, philosophy of language, political philosophy, philosophy of art, ethics, environmental philosophy, philosophy of sport, philosophy of history, philosophy of artificial intelligence. So, marami, ano? The areas involved are philosophy of science, that's 1, logic 2, philosophy of language 3, political philosophy 4, philosophy of art 5, ethics 6, environmental philosophy 7, philosophy of sport 8, philosophy of history 9, philosophy of artificial intelligence 10. We are ending up with philosophy of artificial intelligence because this 21st century is the age of information communication technology. That means information communication technology, that means we deal with artificial intelligence. In fact, later we will deal with artificial general intelligence. So what's the difference? We'll deal with that later. All right, that's me. I miss my haircut, but I don't want to take the risk. Baka yung barbero ko may COVID, mahawa ako. All right, these are my contact details. I've given these items to you earlier via our Google Classroom. I hope you've read the PDF file. And so here are my details. And of course, you already know, dinagdag na natin dyan yung email ko sa Gmail na ginagamit nyo ngayon. Later on, I will give you also my cell phone number for those of you na hindi pa alam. Nagpadala ako sa inyo ng text. Alright? So, you now also know my cell phone number. So, any emergency, you can get in touch with me. Alright? Right now, kung may problema kayo, i-text nyo ako, makikita ko, ito kaharap ko yung cellphone ko. Alright? Now, ano yung ating mga class rules? Importante ito. Madisgrasya kayo pag hindi nyo alam to. These are our class rules. Class grades are going to be based on the following items. 2 long examinations, namely midterm examination and end-of-term examination. Basically, yan lang. Pero kung masipag kayo, you may earn bonus points by answering questions given during class. Yung mga questions, doon ko ilalagay sa Mentimeter. Yung Mentimeter, dapat meron kayong your own account dyan, ha? Kasi yung Mentimeter, gagamitin nga natin for recitation, dyan kayo makaka-earn ng bonus points. And then, I will also ask you to do some homework. In fact, hindi lang some, medyo marami, para matutunan niyo yung ating mga dapat matutunan. Kasi, the first part of the class, the first half of the semester is going to be about logic. The first half of the semester is going to be about the basics of reasoning. And that will involve logic. And that will involve exercises, parang exercises sa arithmetic. Alright? Kung ang arithmetic ay very basic na requirement sa inyo, well, same with logic. Basic requirement sa inyo. Kung marunong kayo ng logic, then maiintindihan ninyo kung bakit maraming troll sa Facebook ay hindi alam kung ano yung logic. Alright. Your passing grade is 75%. Alright, can you see it? That's 75%. Now, bakit 75%? Kasi dapat kinuha nyo ito nung high school eh. Ang nangyayari, inuulit lang natin. So, 75%, pero pwede nating i-adjust. Depende sa normal curve. Hopefully, alam niyo ibig sabihin ng normal curve. Yung normal curve, pag i-graph natin yung inyong mga grades, titingnan natin. At kung may normal curve naman, tapos nakita kong masyadong mababa ang grades ninyo, baka ang ibig sabihin niya na it is me na may problema. It is I who have been not delivering enough. So, if it is I who has not been delivering enough, then we'll make the adjustment. Alright? Pwede natin adjust ang passing grade from 75 to, excuse me, 85. Biro lang. Last semester, that's just a joke. Last semester, we adjusted our passing grade from 75 to 50. We can do the same depending on the class performance. But when I say class performance, I mean class performance of this class and the next class and the next class after that. What applies to the other classes applies to everyone. So I have 3 classes in philosophical analysis. All the grades of my students in all the 3 classes will be combined. And I will look at the normal curve, and if something is wrong, that there's indication I've not been doing my job well, then I will make the adjustments, and your passing grade can be adjusted from 75 to something lower. Alright. Now, ito importante ito. Remember, meron tayong attendance form. Alright? Kita nyo yan. We check the attendance. Now, anong ibig sabihin yan? Well, put it this way. Kayo ay mga scholar ng bayan. Now, scholar ng bayan, ibig sabihin, yung ginagastos ng gobyerno para kayo makapag-aral, pwede nating gastusin para sa mga ibang kababayan natin. Dito sa Metro Manila, ang ating lifespan, ang ating average lifespan is around 69 years. 69 years on the average. Sa Philippines at large, I think the average lifespan is around 63 for females, 62 for males. Now, you go to places like the Muslim region of Mindanao, or some areas in the Cordilleras, and you will find out that ang baba ng kanilang lifespan. Doon sa ibang areas ng Mindanao, ang lifespan nila ay uma-average lang ng 44, 45 years. Tayo sa Metro Manila, 69. One-third of their lives gone simply because they have been born in the Muslim areas of the Philippines. Simply because they have been born in the Cordillera Autonomous Region ng mga Ilocano. Ayaw natin na yung pera sana, yung budget sana na para pantulong sa ating mga kababayang hikahos, dapat napunta sa kanila, napunta sa atin Now, napunta nga sa atin, pagkatapos hindi naman natin bibigyan ng tamang atensyon, nasasayang natin yung opportunity, hindi maganda. Alright? So, the resources of this nation is like a big blanket. You pull the blanket to one side, other people on the other side of the islands do not get their share of the blanket. We do not have enough for everyone. That's what we're saying. So, you have a responsibility to make sure that we do not lose the value of the time, money, and effort spent on you. Meaning to say, kailangan kompleto kayo ng attendance hanggat kaya. Alright? So, what's the catch? Anyone who is absent. Alright, ba't nawala yung isang part, Anyway, let me see. May nawawalang portion Anyway, ito, class rule. Alright. If a student is absent, sandali nawala Well, let me just tell everyone. If a student is absent 20% or more of the time, all right? Let's get back to our Google Classroom. Check here. All right. All right, just a moment. I'd just like to call attention to the rules that we have in this class. All right, see here, number 2, I hope you can see that, but let me just read it. Anyone absent during 20% of more or more of the class sessions is going to be given a grade of 5. Let me repeat that. Anyone absent during 20% or more of the class sessions is going to be given a grade of 5. Bakit nga kasi? Because we are spending time, money, and effort on you as students. Time, money, and effort that we could have spent elsewhere in the Philippines where there is a need. And we don't want the value of the time, money, and effort we spend on you become useless because it will be unfair to those who could have gotten the time, money, and effort instead of you. So, if you are absent 20% or more of the class sessions, you are given a grade of 5. The only time you are not given a grade of 5 is when you are excused. Anyone excused from being absent is going to be given either a make-up examination or a grade of drop if catching up with the class is not possible. Excuse, however, is not the same as mere justification. Excuse me. Let me repeat that. Excuse is not the same as mere justification. Excuse means there is some justification already acceptable by university standards. And in addition, the case involved is a situation where the student has no choice at all but to be absent. For example, has been hospitalized, or has met an accident, or has even been kidnapped. Let me illustrate the situation. So you're a basketball player, you're a member of the varsity, and you're a star player of the varsity. And there is a game. If the varsity wins, then we win the basketball championship. And if we win the basketball championship, then we win the overall championship of the UAAP. Very good. Very important game. Now, however, the game falls on a date when you are going to have your exam. So now you have to make a choice. Either you play the game or take the exam. Play the game or take the exam. Now, you want to be a hero, so you play the game and you're absent. And we win, and we become overall champions, and I congratulate you for it. But I still give you a grade of 0 for the exam, a grade of 5 for the exam. Why? Because you made the choice. It is not as if you had been hospitalized. It is not as if you had been kidnapped. It is not as if some train has run over you, meaning to say you had the choice and you make the choice, and so you get the result. In other words, being excused means you did not really have a choice about the matter. For example, like I said, you had been hospitalized. And you've been asking the doctors, please take me to UP because I have an exam. Take me to UP because I have an exam. Take me to UP because, and of course, you are not taken to the university, and so you're not able to take the exam, and so you're excused. So let me repeat. Excuse is indicated by some justification acceptable by the university standards. And the case involved being a situation where the student has no choice at all but to be absent. There you go. If you are excused, then you will be given a make-up exam, or you will just be given a grade of drop. No excuse, and you're absent for 20% or more of the time, you get a grade of 5. Very clear. Scholar kayo ng bayan, yung ating mga ginagawa ay hindi dapat napapabayaan. All right. So far, so good. If you have any comments, those of you who belong to the Facebook group, that we have put up. You can give your comments there. Those of you who are not members of the Facebook group, you can add a comment dyan sa ating Google Classroom. All right? Just give your comments here. And when it comes to our Facebook broadcast, I'll just have to check with it every once in a while kung meron kayong...
Hello there and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name...
Okay, hindi kasama yun. Sorry. Anyway, we'll get back to that later. Anyway, if you have posted comments on our Facebook chat, I will check with them later on. And hopefully, I'll be able to answer your comments via either the email or our Google Classroom chat. Okay, let me go on. So, these are our rules. If you're absent 20% of the time, then you get a grade of 5. Now, if you're excused, then you're given a makeup exam or you're given a grade of drop. Now, complaints are welcome. Either complaints during classes or complaints after the classes, they are always welcome. Criticism of the professor, welcome. It's okay. Alright, pwedeng sabihin nyo ako na whatever. You can say what you want. Tell me about it. Now, communication shall be with the use of any available information communication technology. All right? That will be our standard. So far, so good. All right? Yan. Ganda niyan, ano? That's a photograph of a sunrise. That's courtesy of Stan Carey from Wikimedia. Salamat sa kanya. All right, we have this. Now, so what about the sunrise? What about the sun rising from the east? All right. Think about it. Enjoy the view. Dali lang, ha? Now, like I said, enjoy the view. Now, question. Supposing you are an astronomer, and as an astronomer, you know that the sun is stationary, and it is the Earth that is moving around the sun. And that it is the Earth that is revolving, and that we only get the impression that the sun is rising, but actually, it is the Earth that is moving. So as an astronomer, you know that. Supposing you are with a friend and your friend does not know that in fact the sun is not moving. Why? Because your friend does not know science. All right? Your friend does not know science. Okay? Now, paano ngayon? Ang tanong do you see the same sun? When you and your friend who does not know science, and you who knows what science of astronomy is all about, look at the sun, do you see the same sun? Big question. All right? Big question. Now, everybody knows, as a rule, the sun rises from the east. All right? Everybody knows the sun rises from the east. Why? How do you know? Well, hindi naman dahil nagbasa ka ng academic journal, say an academic journal in physics, or an academic journal in astronomy, and then finally, thanks to your reading of the academic journal, nalaman mo the sun as a rule rises from the east. Hindi naman ganun yun. In fact, bata pa kayo, alam nyo na, the sun rises from the east. Paano nangyari yun? Alright, we'll get back to that later. Notice that every once in a while, you get to hear some series of tones that you enjoy. You enjoy hearing. However, it can happen that your grandparents, nadinig nila yung series of tones, they get to hear the same series of tones and they don't like it. In other words, it can also happen that the same series of tones, which is for you, music, is for another, noise. Alright? Na-imagine nyo ba si Mother Teresa? I hope you know Mother Teresa. Alright? Na-imagine nyo ba si Mother Teresa kumakanta, "Who let the dogs out?" Parang, ang labo naman, di ba? What is music for you may not be music for her. And what may be music for her may not be music for you. So in other words, you're hearing the same tones. What is for you music can for somebody else be noise. Similarly, when you look at the sun, what is for someone a rising sun may be for another a sun that is stationary, and it is the earth that is revolving around the sun. So, ano ngayon ang ibig sabihin natin yan? Alright? Let's get back first to how we get to know the rule that whenever the sun rises, it rises from the east. Chances are you have never asked the question, how did I know that the sun rises from the east? Chances are you just say, well, I know the sun rises from the east. Well, technically, this is what happens. Like today, all right, today, you see the sun rising from the east. All right, you have that in your mind. You memorize that thought. You memorize that sentence. The sun has risen from the east today. You know that. All right, that's why you say you know that because you have that in your memory. All right, but then you look again into your memory, into your mind. You can say, well, yesterday, the sun has risen from the east. So, you have two thoughts indicating that the sun has risen from the east. And then you remember, well, the day before yesterday, the sun has risen from the east also. And so you have three thoughts indicating that the sun has risen from the east. But the day before that other day, the sun has also risen from the east. And the day before that other day, and so many days, you now get to remember, oh, there are so many days the sun has risen from the east. Ang dami pala. Sus Mariosep. Now, this is the point. Alright? Sa dinami ng mga thoughts mo indicating that the sun has risen from the east, walang counter instance. Wala kahit isang pagkakataon na hindi sa silangan sumikat ang araw. So, you look at your mind, you see so many thoughts, so many of them, and none of them indicates a counter instance that the sun has not risen from the east. And so, you now tell yourself, well, maybe I can now surmise as a rule, let me repeat that, maybe I can now surmise as a rule that whenever the sun rises, it rises from the east. So, there you go. There are so many thoughts in your mind. You know, think of your mind as a basket of goods. And there are so many things in your mind. And you count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, thousands of them, hundreds of thousands of them, millions of them, days when the sun has risen from the east. And there is not even a single unit that the sun has not risen from the east. Not a single unit of thought indicating that the sun is risen from the east. So you now conclude, you now surmise, you now tell yourself, we can have a rule. And what is the rule? Whenever the sun rises, it rises from the east. All right. So you have another thought. We will call that the thought of a rule. We will call that the rule that indicates whenever the sun rises from the east. All right. We now have the rule, whenever the sun rises from the east. Good. So you have that rule. Now, if you know that for so many thoughts, whenever the sun rises from the east, and therefore you know that as a rule, whenever the sun rises, it rises from the east, then you now look into the future. You say, tomorrow, that's a future, or the day after tomorrow, that's another future. If you look into the future, you can now say, well, I guess if the sun is going to rise, my prediction is it's going to rise from the east. So, there you go. You can now predict. There you go. You can now have a vision of the future. There you go. We have now become prophets. Ayan. So, anong gusto nating sabihin? Well, ang philosophical analysis, noong unang panahon, parang pagiging isang propeta, parang pagiging isang prophet. Alright? Thanks to philosophical analysis, we will have some grasp of the future. Tingnan niyo yan. Doon sa Egypt, noong unang panahon, doon sa Egypt, yung ginagawa natin ngayon, tawag natin philosophical analysis, yung ganyang mga pag-uusap, ganyang mga discourses like that, ay meant only to be dealt with among the chosen people, among the high priest, among priests and kings, among sons and daughters of the gods and the deities. Okay? Kaya yan ang pinili kong litrato eh. That's the reason why that photograph is there. Alright? That photograph tells you that what? In the ancient times, they did not think like us. In the ancient times, this is what has happened. When they look into the future, they are looking into the future thanks only to the prophets. Prophets who have talked to the gods themselves. Or, in the case of the Egyptians, it is the gods themselves, the Egyptian gods themselves, the pharaohs, who see the future, apparently having some powers with which they see the future. And that's the only way ancient men looked into the future. So, what's that all about? If you're a farmer and you plant on the wrong seasons, and you plant during the wrong seasons, you just lose your crops. You lose your seeds. Say you have a whole bunch of seeds that you have collected for so long a time, and then you make a guess. I think my guess is this is the best time to plant. And then you plant all your seeds. But you have no knowledge, in fact, that after planting those seeds, you will have rains or no rains at all. And so what do? In the ancient times, you just pray to the gods. In the ancient times, you implore the gods. You implore the gods through your pharaoh or through your prophets. Bahala ka sa buhay mo. Maghanap ka ng prophet. Magharap ka ng kapulong ng Diyos. Pag wala kang makita, bahala ka sa buhay mo. Tsambahan ka lang. Kung nagkataon, if it so happens you plant your seeds during summertime, in the absence of a calendar, hindi mo naman alam kasi in ancient times, wala namang kalendaryo. And so, you just say, well, I think this is the best time to plant. It turns out by luck na June, July, August, Swerte mo, may ulan. Eh kung bad luck, by chance you get to plant your seeds during summertime, problema ka. Bakit? Your seeds will just be eaten up by insects and then there will be no harvest. Waste of time. Waste of money kung may pera. Pero noong unang panahon, wala pa naman pera eh. So what's the point? Ancient men did not think like us. Ancient men, when they look into their minds, let me repeat that. Ancient men, when they look into their minds, they don't see anything like what we see. If you have thoughts in your minds, today, you can gather your thoughts, arrange them in a way, and then put them together in what you may call a poem, or maybe later a song. And all those things in your mind that you are able to come up with, and you put them and you put them together and you have a song, and then you put music into it. Later you can sell that song. Sometimes you have so many songs and you become a superstar and then you become filthy rich. And it all boils down to there are things you see in your mind that you think are your own. They are yours. They are yours, and therefore you can manipulate them, and therefore you can create with them. And so you can come up with a novel or a short story or a poem or a song, and you become famous, and you help everybody with your thoughts. But in the ancient times, ancient people did not think like us. We have indications of that. As you can see in our material. All right, take a look at our material here. Dito sa ating material, meron tayong course pack. All right. Now, you scroll down the course pack that I've given you. You will see not only our class rules, for example here, very important yan ha. But you can also see an appendix, actually 2 of them. Now, here, excuse me. All right. Here, I've given you a clip out of my book that I published in 1991 about how we predict phenomena in the ancient times. And I have so many material here that you can go into. For example, here you can look at you can see there on the footnotes. Anyway, hopefully, you get to see this material. All right? Basahin nyo ha. Importante yan, next meeting. This is your first assignment. Read this. All right? Your assignment, read. Read this. Or if you're not satisfied with my work, then you can read for the next meeting something on philosophy and democracy. All right? Focus on philosophy and democracy. If you have time, philosophy, democracy, and science. But for our purposes for next meeting, all right, our concentration is philosophy and democracy. I'll tell you about that later, all right? But that's your first assignment. Let me get back to what we were talking about. All right? Excuse me. We were talking about the Egyptians, as I was saying. By the way, the photograph is courtesy of some Australian who did not want to be, whose name he did not want to be mentioned. But again, thanks to him, we have this. All right, so let's get back to it. We are able to see the future. What's the future? Tomorrow, the sun, if it is going to rise, it will rise in the east. We are able to see the future. What future? If the day after tomorrow, the sun rises, we know it's going to rise in the east. There you go. We can predict the future. All right? Now, how did we predict the future? We did not rely on the gods and the deities. Hindi ganun yun. Hindi kagaya ng mga pharaohs, they want to see the future, they ask the gods and the deities. All right? Ano yung ancient times? they name their kids, they name their children. What am I going to call my kid? Well, they ask the gods and the deities. They want to get married. Who am I going to marry? Well, they ask the gods and the deities. They are planning on going to battle with some other tribe. Shall I win or shall I lose? They ask the gods and the deities. They want to know when they are going to plant or when are they going to harvest. They ask the gods and the deities. But these days, we don't do that much anymore. All right? You want to know when to plant, when not to plant, you look at your calendar and then make your calculation. You want to know if the sun is going to rise in the east tomorrow, what do? You reason. That's the point. All right, let's get back to this. Philosophical analysis, course objective. All right, at the end of the semester, the student should have enough understanding, all right? At the end of the semester, the student should have enough understanding of the nature and limits of reasoning. All right, focus on that, reasoning, on the nature and limits of reasoning as to be able to cite examples of philosophical analysis in many areas of philosophy. Reasoning. Kaya mo alam na bukas the sun will rise from the east, hindi dahil may kausap kang mga Diyos, dahil marunong kang mag-reason. Out of reasoning, having seen so many days out of experience that the sun is risen from the east, you have come up with a rule. What rule? Whenever the sun rises, it rises from the east. Out of reasoning, having seen so many free-falling bodies, and you know, there is no counter instance to the behavior that you have seen, so you come up with the rule. What rule? For all free-falling bodies, force equals mass times acceleration. And so on and so forth. Given our capacity to reason, we predict the future. We predict the future that what? Well, despite all the announcements, we are probably not going to have our COVID-19 vaccine within 6 months' time. It will probably take longer, much longer even. Right? Out of our capacity to reason, knowing what research is all about, we don't expect that come this December, ngayong Pasko, mawawala na tayo ng problema dahil meron na tayong vaccine. All right? That's all bullshit. If you know how to reason, you will not believe that. All right? Haka-haka. All right? Now, ano pa yung mga prediction alam natin? Well, we know that by around 2050, our environment that we see today is not going to be the same. All right? Malaki problema natin. All right? We know that in the future, Manila Bay, especially the Baywalk, will have white sand coming from Cebu. Biro lang. I'm just kidding. What I'm saying is, thanks to our capacity to reason nowadays, we see that our future is bleak when it comes to the environment. We are losing so much of our environment. All right? We'll deal with that later. Now, there you go. How are we able to use reasoning to be able to predict? Well, let me call your attention to some drawings. All right? Drawing tayo. Okay. Can you see that? Hopefully you can see that. Okay, let me just draw something for you. Okay. Supposing you have one thought, all right? Ano ba nangyari dito? Clear. Supposing you have one thought, all right? Let me refresh. Yeah, okay, supposing you have one thought, all right? That's one. And you have another thought, all right? That's another. And you have another thought, all right? That's another. And another thought, all right? That's another. Now, as we've said, supposing this thought is all about the sun rising from the east today. And then another thought all about the sun rising from the east today. And the same, and the same. And so you have 1, 2, 3, 4, so many of them. All right? Supposing you have all these thoughts in your mind. And thanks to all of these thoughts, supposing you have so many of them, thanks to all of these thoughts, you are now able to say as a rule, whenever the sun rises, it rises from the east. All right? And because you know this rule, then you can say tomorrow, when the sun rises, it's going to rise from the east. Now, that's exactly what we want to know about. We want to know how this is related to this. And this is related to this. And this is related to this. And this is related to this and this. We want to see how they all relate to one another. In other words, what we want to do is to be able to see how our thoughts in our minds hang together. All right? Okay. We have our minds like a big basket full of goods. And these goods are related to one another in some pattern. Now, it is exactly how those units in your minds, units called thoughts, the thought that the sun is risen from the east, the thought that some apple has fallen this way, the thought that birds fly in this way. All right, you have all these thoughts and you can relate them to one another in some matrix. And once you're able to understand how the matrix is established, then you get to understand how the future is related to what we have in our minds. And that's what philosophers have discovered. And that's the contribution of philosophy to all the ages today. Philosophy today is recognized as the foundation of what is called Western civilization. Excuse me. If you go around the university, you go to Quezon Hall, what do you notice? You notice big columns and extensive steps. Columns and steps that recognize that if you recognize indicate Greco-Roman influence. Greco, the Greeks, Roman, the Romans. The Greeks and the Romans, they were actually the first to dabble with philosophy the way we know philosophy today. It is not an accident that if you go to the United States Senate, or if you go to the White House, or if you go to the National Museum here in the Philippines, or if you go to Palma Hall, or if you go to Melchor Hall, what you see are Greek influenced structures, steps and columns. Bakit ganon? Kasi nga, napaka-importante sa buhay natin ng contribution ng mga Greeks for inventing philosophy. Yang mga Greeks na yan, sila ang umimbento ng physics, they gave it a name. Yang mga Greeks na yan, sila ang umimbento ng biology, they gave it a name. Yang mga Greeks na yan, ang umimbento ng geometry, required kayo pag-aralan ngayong high school, kahit ngayon. Yang mga Greeks na yan ang umimbento ng logic, required kayo sa course na ito. Pag hindi nga kayo pumasa dyan sa examen sa logic, bagsak kayo sa klase. So, kaya ganun yung assignment natin kanina. Sabi ko nga, the first assignment ninyo for this class is to read on the invention by the ancient Greeks of what? Philosophy, that's one. And democracy, that's another. Yung science, saka na natin pag-usapan. Focus your attention on philosophy and democracy. For next meeting, napaka-importante niyan. For next meeting, yung analysis natin ng democracy at analysis natin ng philosophy, yan ang magbibigay linaw dyan nga sa ating magbibigay ng linaw dyan nga sa ating tinatawag na reasoning. It is by way of understanding reasoning that we will get to understand how our thoughts in our minds hang together as a system. All right? Take note of that term, system. We are going to deal with our thoughts in our minds as they are part of some system. In other words, part of some machinery. In other words, I will be introducing you to what nowadays people call mental models. Yung panahon ko, ang tawag namin philosophy. Kayo ngayon, ang tawag ninyo mental models eh. Pag-usapan natin yan later. And mental models or philosophies are like machines. They are systems. They are systems, therefore having components related to one another in some regular way, governed by rules. Yan. Ito nga yung tanong ko kanina eh. Nung kayo ay high school, nung kayo ay nasa senior high, yan bagang mga rules na iyan. Rules that tell you how your thoughts hang together with one another in your mind. Yan bagang pag-aaral nyo nung high school at saka senior high, na-touch nyo, pinuntahan ninyo yung mga rules na yan. Rules of reasoning. Rules with which you dabble with mathematics. Rules with which you dabble with physics or biology. Rules with which you're able to predict tomorrow the sun will rise from the east. Rules with which you're able to predict pag siyang niligawan ko, maganda ang buhay ko pagka kami natuloy na mapakasal. O pag siya ay sinagot ko, delikado ang buhay ko kaya busted ko na lang siya. Yung bang mga rules na iyan, pinag-aralan ninyo? 10 to 1 ang hula ko, hindi. Noong kayo high school, 10 to 1, chances are, most probably, you have never had a class on how your thoughts hang together as a system. Kaya dito sa UP, gagawin natin. Yan. Noong high school kayo, merong philosophical analysis. Required kasi ng DepEd yan eh. Dati, ang philosophical analysis required ng CHED. Yung CHED, ang unang-unang commission ng CHED ay mga graduate ng UP. Yang mga graduate ng UP na yan ng CHED, Commission on Higher Education, they decided that as part of the requirement of all college students in the entire Philippines, they would require philosophical analysis based on how we teach philosophical analysis here at UP. So for a long time, since 1990, if I'm not mistaken, for a long time, since 1990, required ng philosophical analysis sa college. In fact, in my case, yung libro na pinablish noong 1991 or 92, hindi ko na matandaan, na isinulat ko at saka ni Dr. Leonardo De Castro ng department, dating chairman namin sa department, yung sinulat namin libro on philosophical analysis, ginagamit dati sa college yan sa labas ng UP. Required yan. Ngayon, nung naisipan ng gobyerno na magkaroon ng senior high sa makatuwid, yung ating first year at second year college student courses, ay ibababa sa high school at tatawaging senior high school, right? Grade 9 at grade 10. Hindi pala. Grade 11 at grade 12. Anyway, yung senior high school natin, nung ibinaba yung philosophical analysis, ginawa rin requirement. Ang problema, noong ginawa yan, ang Department of Education at that time, ay ang nagpapatakbo ay hindi mga graduate ng UP. Ang nagpapatakbo ay graduate ng mga Catholic schools. So ano nangyari? Yung dating philosophical analysis na dati pagtuturo ay ginagaya yung pagtuturo sa UP, nung napunta sa high school, napunta sa senior high, biglang nawala ang requirement ng logic. Biglang nawala ang requirement ng pag-aaral ng nature and limits of reasoning. Kaya pag tiningnan nyo yung mga textbook nyo ngayon, dyan sa philosophical analysis sa senior high, yung pag-aaral ng, sabi ko nga ay understanding of the nature and limits of reasoning ay nawala. Yan ang ginagawa sa pag-aaral ng logic. Yan ang foundation ng mathematics, therefore foundation ng physics, therefore foundation ng science. Pag malinaw sa inyo ang nature and limits of reasoning, in others, ang logic, malinaw sa inyo ang science. Kaya ngayon, required sa atin. Sa buong UP, dati required ang Philo 1, philosophical analysis. Buong UP yan. For some reason, hindi ko alam. For some reason, pagdating ng year 2000, biglang ginawang elective na lamang ang philosophical analysis. Elective. Ang pag-aaral ng nature and limits of reasoning naging elective. Sa mga tuwid, ang pag-aaral ng nature and limits of reasoning sa UP beginning the year 2000, hindi required. So pwede kang graduate na UP, hindi ka nag-aral ng nature and limits of reasoning. Hindi ka nag-aral ng logic. Ayos ang buto-buto. Hindi ko na alam kung anong dahilan. Basta nawala. Itong Diliman, itong UP Diliman, matigas ang ulo. So all this time, bagamat hindi required for all UP students, itong mga department sa buong UP Diliman, nire-require nila yung mga estudyante. Kinukulit ang mga estudyante, kunin nyo yan, kunin nyo yan. Dumating ang 2010, nagpulong-pulong ang mga taga-UP Diliman. At ginawang formal, sabi ng UP Diliman, formally, i-require na natin ang philosophical analysis sa UP Diliman. Kung hindi required yan sa buong UP system, at least sa UP Diliman required. So ngayon, kinukuha ninyo. Ang tawag sa age nung panahon namin, alam nyo, matanda na ako. I was born in the 20th century. Ang tawag sa age namin ng 20th century, ang tawag dyan ay Age of Space Exploration. Ang idol namin si Neil Armstrong. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Yan. Idol namin yan, Neil Armstrong. Noong 20th century, if you have an economy as a nation, and your economy is not compatible with space exploration, your economy would not have been competitive. Pag wala kayong satellite communication systems, tagilid ang negosyo mo. Tagilid ang mga eroplano mo. Tagilid ang maraming bagay, kaya napaka-importante ng space technology. So, ang tawag sa panahon ng 20th century, Age of Space Exploration. Yung century before that, panahon ni na Jose Rizal. Yan ang panahon ni na Alexander Graham Bell, ni na Thomas Edison, ni na Nikola Tesla. Yang panahon na yan, ang tawag dyan, Age of Inventors. Yung mga inventors noong 19th century, naka-invento ng dynamo, naka-invento ng locomotive engine, ng tren, naka-invento ng incandescent lamp. Pagka ang iyong nation ay wala nung mga inventions na iyan, hindi magiging competitive ang economy mo. Kaya ang tawag sa 19th century ay 1800s, 19th century, ang tawag Age of Inventors. Noong 20th century, Age of Space Exploration. Ngayon, ang tawag sa 21st century, Age of Information Communication Technology. Pag wala kang compatibility sa iyong economy at dyan sa information communication technology, hindi competitive ang iyong economy. Ito nga ang klase natin, hindi possible kung walang information communication technology. Alright? Anong tawag dyan? Age of Information Communication Technology. Yan. Ano ngayon? Well, sulat nga natin, baka magkalimutan eh. Alright, sulat natin. Ano ba yung panahon natin ngayon? Age of Information Communication Technology. Yan. Bakit ko hina-highlight? Kasi pag walang computer, walang information communication technology. Okay, ano ngayon? Pag walang computer, walang Age of Information Communication Technology. Pero pag walang computer programming, walang computer. Ano ba yung computer programming? Yung computer programming ay basically systems analysis. Among other things, importante dyan ang tawag nga natin ay logic. Yung klase natin, pag-aaralan natin ang logic. Pag-aaralan natin ang nature and limits of reasoning. Now, yung pag-aaral ng nature and limits of reasoning, ang tawag nga dyan logic, yan ay foundation ng computer programming. Yan ay foundation ng information communication technology. Anong gusto nating sabihin? Nabanggit ko nga kanina, ay pala isipan, noong year 2000, dito sa UP, na dati-dati namang required ng philosophical analysis, therefore required ng pag-aaral ng logic, ay biglang tinanggal ang requirement, ginawang elective. Kung kailan pumasok ang 21st century, ang Age of Information Communication Technology, ay ayan ang nangyari. Tinanggal ang requirement ng logic. Ang talino. Palaisipan. Napakatalino. Alright? Ay mabuti na lang at dito sa UP Diliman ay matitigas ang ulo ng mga teacher. Naku, pag nakilala niyo ako, ay tsak na tsak, malalaman niyo kung ano ibig sabihin ng matigas ang ulo. Alright? Pwedeng-pwede akong sumama sa lahat ng kapatid ko, lahat ng pamangkin ko, lahat ng tatay at nanay ko sa Amerika. Kung kalaki ng kita doon, nakakaingit yung mga kapatid ko. Ay gawa nga ng matigas ang ulo ko, ay di narinig pa rin ako. Ayan, nagtuturo ng philosophical analysis. Alright, live sa YouTube. Kababa ng sweldo. Pag retire ko, ay hindi pwedeng hindi ako magtatrabaho at wala naman akong aasahin sa retirement pay, puro utang. Salamat tayo dito sa UP, matitigas ang ulo ng mga teacher dito, kagaya ko, ay di buti na lang required yung philosophical analysis. Alright? So, for next meeting, pag-aaralan natin yan, ha? Sisimulan natin ang mga technical requirements sa understanding ng nature and limits of reasoning. Ngayon, dahil nga medyo may technical problems tayo, kasi hindi ko pa kayo natuturuan ng Mentimeter, at yung Mentimeter ang gagamitin nating pamamaraan para kayo ay makaparticipate sa klase, asa lang muna tayo dyan sa mga chat. Alright? Kung meron kayong mga gustong banggitin, ipadala nyo sa akin dyan sa ating Google Classroom. Alright, tingnan ko nga kung merong nag-message sa inyo sa akin dito. Ayan, buti na lang. Basahin natin may mga comments. Alright, good morning po. I'm now watching. Good morning po. Ay, naku. Ang gusto natin okay lang yan mag-good morning kayo. Kailangan ko yan. Kukunti lang kausap ko sa bahay 3 aso. Kaya pag nag-good morning kayo sa akin, ay di masaya. Alright, pero ang gusto kong sabihin, mag-comment din kayo na, Sir, mali ang sinabi ninyo Or Sir, ay siguro nga tama yung sinabi nyo. Or ba't kung anong pumasok sa isip nyo, comment din nyo. Walang masama. Alright? Kaya isa sa homework ninyo, pag-aralan ng demokrasya Kung walang demokrasya, kung hindi na-imbento ang demokrasya ng mga Greeks, hindi nila ma-imbento ang philosophy. Pag hindi na-imbento ang philosophy, hindi ma-imbento ang science. Pag walang science, ay di ibang-ibang buhay natin ngayon. Kabit-kabit yan yung usapan na yan. Kaya ang unang homework ninyo 1, basahin ninyo yung aking nandun sa appendix tungkol sa mga ancient Greeks. Or kung ayaw ninyo yan, magbasa kayo ng Wikipedia o kaya Encyclopedia Britannica. Yung Encyclopedia Britannica, libre na yan Ang ating gagamitin laging standard ay Encyclopedia Britannica or Wikipedia. Or kung ayaw nyo yan, pwede yung mga libro. Binigyan ko kayo ng mga halimbawa ng mga libro dyan. Alright, ano nga ba yung ating nilagay ko dyan sa course pack natin, nandyan yung mga libro. Alright, nasaan dyan? Yan. Text material. May libro dyan. 2. Actually, may pangatlo. Alright? Yung pangatlong libro na pwede nyong gamitin, isusulat ko. Basahin ninyo, hanapin ninyo. Ang balita ko, may PDF file nito Alright? Merong isang mahusay magsulat, ang pangalan, Irving Copy. Alright? Meron siyang libro, Introduction to Logic. Meron siyang libro sa logic. PDF file. Maganda yung kanyang libro, hanapin ninyo. Yan ang librong ginamit ko nung ako nandito nag-aaral pa rin as a student Marami ako napulot dyan. Bagamat ang problema dun sa libro niya, I will explain later, hindi niya pinag-uusapan yung information communication technology. Pero saka na natin pag-usapan yan. Alright, so, anong homework ninyo? Read on the invention of philosophy and democracy by the ancient Greeks. So, essentially, tatlong bagay ang pag-aaralan ninyo. 1, philosophy. 2, democracy. And 3, ancient Greece. Ancient Greece. Like I said, hindi aksidente na mukhang ancient Greek structures ang Quezon Hall, ang Melchor Hall, ang Palmo Hall, at kadami-dami pang structure dito sa UP. Alright? Hindi aksidente yan. Sinadya para hindi nyo makalimutan. Miski nga si Jose Rizal, by the way, mahilig siya sa ancient Greek studies. Nakita ko yung kanyang pangatlong libro, pinakita sa akin ng kanyang pamangkin. Kaibigan ko kasi yung pamangkin ni Jose Rizal eh. And nung buhay pa siya, pinakita sa akin yung pangatlong libro ni Jose Rizal na hindi na-publish tungkol sa ancient Greece. Husay. Kaya hindi rin nakakapagtaka na yung tinuruan ni Rizal, namely si Emilio Jacinto at saka si Apolinario Mabini, mahilig magbasa tungkol sa ancient Greece. Alright? So kayo, magbasa rin kayo niyan. Alright? Philosophy, democracy, ancient Greeks. Anong gagamitin? Yung aking mga isinulat o yung isinulat dun sa ating mga libro na nirecommend ko o yung Wikipedia at saka Encyclopedia Britannica. Yung Encyclopedia Britannica, mas pabor ako doon eh. Pero kung hindi nyo ma-access, edi pwede na rin ang Wikipedia. Alright, there you go. Haba ng kwentuhan, ha? Mahaba pa yan, lalo na pagka nagpa-participate na kayo using Mentimeter. And then, ang gagawin natin, by the way, ang gagawin ko, beginning next meeting, iimbitahan ko 10 sa inyo. So, next meeting, mag-iimbita ako ng 10 doon kayo sa StreamYard. And then, mag-iimbita ako ng another 10 sa susunod na meeting para live ang participation sa StreamYard. Pagkabisado na natin yung StreamYard at saka nakapagbayad na ako, ay lahat, buong klase, isasama na natin doon sa StreamYard. Ang StreamYard, kapareho lang yan ng Zoom. Ang Zoom, kaya hindi ko ginagamit, kasi yan ay, ang gumawa niyan ay kontrolado ng China Politburo. Ako kasi, malaki ang aking pag-aalinlangan sa China Politburo. Kita niyo naman, ginagawa nila sa West Philippine Sea at kung ano-ano pa. Ay dahil ako'y critic nila, ay ayaw ko na yung aking mga dokumento na hawak ko ngayon ay magiging delikado. So, ingat ako, kaya hindi Zoom ang ginagamit natin. Makikita nyo naman sa net, ang Zoom ay maraming security issues eh. So, yan. There you go. Kung meron kayong kung meron kayong last word, kung meron kayong comments, complaints, suggestion, ipasa nyo lang doon sa ating Google Classroom, i-comment nyo lang doon sa ating live streaming sa YouTube. Babasahin ko, kukolektahin ko, and then we will deal with them next meeting. Hopefully, next meeting, meron na sa inyong 10 nakasama sa StreamYard. Iimbitahan ko at live tayo ulit. Okay, magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Pasensya na kung nagka-problema at kung ano man, banggitin nyo lang sa akin later. Okay, magandang tanghali po, kain tayo.